excited. This is the first virtual table hosted by Gorilla ERP. So thank you everyone for joining. I think this year has been a very, very challenging year to say the least, pretty much unprecedented. One of the things that we wanted to look at is those challenges ahead for many of the businesses out there, whether it's your clients, the companies you're working for and with. So the whole main subject we're looking at is stick or twist, ERP innovation and business transformation. So to kick it off, I thought it'd be quite nice just for everyone to go round the table, very brief introduction into themselves, their background, and a little bit of retrospective view in terms of what's happened this year and where have the key challenges been for your customers or your company that you're working at. So Shrabani, would you like to kick that off for us and just—
Yeah, sure, my pleasure. Thank you, Dean.
No worries.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect, great. So my name is Shrabani. First of all, thank you, Dean, for having me here today. It's my great pleasure to be part of this very important discussion. My background is predominantly retail. So over the past decade, I have worked for Marks & Spencer, Arcadia Group, and Sainsbury's. So for most part of it, it was about solving a retailer challenge or taking them through a journey of becoming truly omnichannel. So today, I think for most part of it, I'm going to offer my perspectives around what challenges and opportunities facing these retailers specifically. So just looking back, I think, as you said, Dean, 2020 was hell of a year, and UK faced the worst recession on record, and my industry, retail, was one of the most affected ones. So in my view, I think the challenges that the retailers faced were threefold. The first one being the shutdown of the brick and mortar and stores, and hence reduced footfall, and hence the sales globally across the brick and mortar have suffered. And secondly, I think it was about keeping up with the fluctuating demand. Some retailers saw customer demand falling away and customers shifting channels, and some retailers saw unprecedented spike in demand. So the ability to predict and to manage the demand became really complex, really complicated.
Yeah.
And I think the third big challenge, in my view, one of the most important ones, is protecting their people. Whilst trying to ensure business as usual, they had to ensure the safety of their employees as well. So quite big challenges. And just to bring this into perspective of a couple of retailers I worked for, Arcadia Group, I think all of us have seen the recent news. I think it's fair to say that the underlying reason for the failure of these organizations like Arcadia Group and Debenhams, I think they're far deeper than the impact of just lockdown. It merely accelerated the demise rather than caused it. And specifically about Arcadia, I think the fall is related to years of underinvestment in their e-commerce platform, which was rapidly left behind by the likes of ASOS and Boohoo. So yeah, retailers wise, all retailers had varied challenges. Sainsbury's, for example, they dealt with significant out of stock situations, which was again was a big deal for them. So just in summary, of for me, looking at retailers, it was really a difficult year. But I think, as I always say, disruptions create opportunities. Yeah. So looking ahead, it does create big opportunities and significant opportunities for retailers to pivot in the right direction.
Thank you, Shrabani. That's a good reflection. I think retailers, the fact that you've worked at Arcadia Group, obviously that's been in the news, unfortunately, the situation they've had. So thanks for that summary. Mr. Lowson, should we come on to you? Do you just want to give a brief introduction, David, in terms of your background? And as Shrabani, just look at 2020 as a brief picture.
David Lowson, I am the SAP COE leader for Capgemini for Europe. So I have around the easiest way to say I have 270 S4 projects ongoing at the moment. So that's the sort of my remit. 2020 has been emotional. We came off the back of 2019 in a strong growth mode with recruitment and with resource shortages and struggling to support our clients on their journeys, and that seemed to continue through the first quarter. The disruption that COVID has brought to the SAP ERP industry has been great. As I go through the year, I can see that we will achieve growth, strong growth. We will win new customers. We will start some fantastic new projects. On the other hand, for every one that's started, there's been another one that's been delayed or cancelled, and then there's a whole lot of built-up demand in the market, which probably just hasn't appeared. So dealing with that has been a roller coaster ride for us and for our customers, I'm sure. And as I look forward to 2021, I think I can feel that we're going to be back to an enormous period of acceleration, an enormous period of challenge from our clients, and hopefully a year of delivering really strong business outcomes and really fast changes to their businesses that have been demanded by the COVID situation, and that's accelerated everything. So, yeah, and I'm excited for 2021. 2020's been good, but it's been emotional, and I'm hoping that 2021 will be smoother and easier to predict.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, David. I definitely agree. It's been definitely an emotional year and a challenge, and we're already starting to see some positive signs going into next year. So thank you, Matt. Would you like to just do the same, please?
Certainly, Matthew Smithwright, CloudWorks COO. So my background is 20 plus years experience in ERP. I've always been in that space, but from a delivery point of view, so across industries. 10 or so years ago, I co-founded a cloud consulting company, specializing in moving ERP into AWS, and grew that company, took that company out to the US, which is where I am now. And now I'm kind of doing the same again, but on an area of growth that I think is really interesting, which is SAP on Google Cloud. So 2020 has been a crazy year, obviously, very sad year for a lot of people. And I think from a technology point of view, it's been a difficult year because, as David kind of mentioned, the prediction of what's happening has been extremely difficult. So, strangely, some customers have sped up their cloud journey because all of a sudden they're like, we need to get to a position where we can support our customers. And to do that, we need to get into the cloud as quickly as possible. And then other customers have completely stopped projects and said, actually, where we were focusing, that isn't important to us now. So perhaps we need to focus on business continuity now, which we didn't before. So how are our employees going to work from home now? Which a lot of customers kind of didn't pay too much attention to, or it was always a paper-based exercise. And all of a sudden it becomes very real for them. So that's been a real challenge to be able to predict and talk to customers and help them focus on where the benefits are going to be from doing a particular project. From my point of view, that project's always going to be a cloud migration of some sort and some sort of digital transformation. And I think going into 2021, I think the floodgates are probably going to open because a lot of customers, competitors, they will already be in the cloud. And those ones that have sped up their journey, all of a sudden will have a kind of a competitor advantage compared with some people that haven't moved. And so I think that's going to be I think there'll be a really strong drive and a fast drive to transform.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. I think we've seen companies out there look to innovate and take this opportunity, maybe in not so normal trading conditions. People actually sped up their project, and then obviously you saw the other side of that was people cancelled or put on hold projects. So Thanks for your insight, Matt. Alistair, would you like to introduce yourself and again give a little insight into your background and 2020 from your view?
Yeah, so I've been in and around SAP transformation for about 32 years, across the industry section. In the last few years, I've been working across a number of organisations, very much around helping customers make sense of their sort of like transformation journey, because it's all getting very confusing at the moment for customers in terms of lots of different competing priorities. So we've been sort of like working in that space for a few years, helping organisations, mainly CFOs, make sense of changing target operating models, thinking about benefit case, all that type of stuff, and trying to help them with the journey, and always around SAP. So it's always sort of like the Fortune 1000 or the top end of the tier twos. And I think sort of like 2020 has been a really interesting one, because I think there was a realization in a lot of organizations, retail and service, that they'd never really come to terms of full end-to-end lead to cash. Lead to cash had been really siloed in the past. So opportunity sits in the Salesforce space, and there's a load of salespeople doing opportunity. And then the cash bit sits in the SAP space, and they live in different worlds. And it was a real coming together, I think, sort of like in 2020, where lead to cash has sort of like become order of the day. And a lot of people coming to terms of all lead to cash, CFOs from a cash perspective, COOs in terms of what does the pipe look like, and that's all like coming together. So I think a lot of focus on cash, a lot of focus on lead to cash. Then I think 21 is going to see a slightly different dynamic in terms of that acceleration around transformation, but starting to think about Industry 4.0. So now organisations are really starting to buy into innovation. They're starting to think about small bits of innovation, because they've seen that the only way to mitigate the impact of COVID and lead to cash is by doing lots of bits and pieces rather than lots of big change, you know? So I think 21 is really going to be about platforms. And I think it's going to be less about the technology and about what the platforms provide in terms of Industry 4.0, and about really getting further and further into Industry 4.0 and the opportunities and the benefits that provides organisations. So I think really sort of like 2021 has been difficult, is actually be a real eye-opener to CFOs and CIOs in terms of the art of the possible and what can really be achieved if they focus.
Okay, thanks for that insight. I mean, we talked on one of our SAP chats was around liquidity and you know, where are these sort of higher returns or quicker return on investment. And I think from conversations we've had and I've had with others, it seems to be that year ahead is maybe this year's kind of made people look at what they've got and how they go into next year and address some of those challenges. So thanks for your insight, Alistair. And last but not least, Steve, just again, quick insight, mate, into your background, please, and where you saw those key challenges around 2020.
Yeah, I've been left a lot to go at. Yeah, Steve Ingram, I'm with Deloitte, work in advisory and retail mostly, but around the SAP space. 30 years in the SAP world and just about 30 years in retail. Haven't had roles from consulting right the way through to CIO, supply chain director within there. So again, like Shabani, I'll probably focus more on retail with most of the stuff I talk about. If I look at it, I think this year can be best summed up in just as uncertainty. Are everywhere, and it's been uncertainty that started the year as uncertainty over what would the Brexit thing look like. Haven't been being a supply chain guy, starting stuff on that. That then suddenly faded to the back, and it's come to the fore again, as well as the virus and as well as coronavirus. And then it became, as Alistair's mentioned, and Dave's mentioned, with projects on and off, it became a bit of survival first. So have we got enough cash that we're going to see it through to next year? And we see several retailers that haven't. But equally, like Shabani says, a lot of it is deeper than just the virus and deeper than lockdown. A bad business is a bad business, whether it's a good time or a bad time. And we're seeing that with some of them that were struggling. Debenhams was struggling long before. Edinburgh Woolen Mill forgot its reason to exist. People don't admit to being old and wanting to buy cardigans and slippers anymore. So therefore, that was a retailer that doesn't need to be. My granny buys stuff at Next, so it's they've gone. So yeah, I think that's been this year. It's been all about uncertainty and trying to adapt, survive, and then be agile. And I think this is where it's caught a lot of companies out and a lot of businesses out, because actually their infrastructure and their legacy and what they currently had wasn't agile. And we've seen all sorts of mishmashes. And interestingly, as they go to growth in the next year, we're probably going to see people have to re-engineer some of the emergency stuff that they stuck in this year as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll discuss that as we go through.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've seen, certainly from your view on the retail side, there's a lot of retailers out there that probably were not set up as strongly on e-commerce, their supply chain, warehouse, etc., in their back office operations. And those that were in that position, I mean, the obvious one's Primark, but their business model, I think, is slightly different in terms of how they sell their products and the price. But they had no sales. They went from, I can't remember the figure, but it was pretty huge, to having 0 over two quarters. So that's certainly something you've talked about before, Steve. So thanks for your insight. So let's go back, Shrabani, when we talk about your view on 2020 and obviously coming from it from more of a retail perspective. Shrabani, if you were talking to your CIO, your CEO, or someone around that decision making, and you were advising about the challenges you saw ahead for the business, if you needed to discuss what projects or innovations to carry out in order to take it head on to those challenges, what would you be saying, Shrabani? Where do you think that innovation comes from for 2021, from your perspective in your kind of retail environment?
Yeah. I think from my perspective, going ahead into 2021, the key challenge retailers are going to face is to stay relevant in this really, really competitive, crowded, and fast-changing marketplace. I mean, just for an example, the customer ordering journey online has been now reduced to a one-click operation, or even a verbal command to a smart speaker. And your competitor is not any other retailer. It's a technology giant that does retailing. I'm of course talking about the global behemoth Amazon, and they bring a whole suite of innovative technologies to the fore and have simplified the ordering process as much as possible and have expedited the fulfillment. So that's where the key challenge is going to be. And of course, it started in 2020, the move away from the brick and mortar to e-commerce. And the challenge, as Steve was saying, is going to adapt to the market situation where speed and convenience, these two are going to be key. So from my perspective, there are many. I think going forward, if I had to advise, there are 3 things I want to talk about. Number 1 would be omni-channel payment. This is during COVID, the small and medium businesses, they tried various approaches to stay afloat. And something was clear that omni-channel payment is on the rise. You have to provide your customers multiple purchasing options on your website, your mobile channel, and on your social media. There has to be flexibility around your payment method. And to provide that, the seamless customer experience that your customers are looking for. And what that means is you as a retailer need to have that underlying technology to be able to cater to those complex requirements of complex payment gateways. So that's essential now. And just as an example, Apple Pay and Google Pay, they are not new, but going ahead into 2021, this is going to become an essential part of retailing. So I think that's number 1, focusing on innovations around omnichannel payment. And the second one, I think the decision makers will need to invest their time and money on is around social commerce. I mean, people don't want to click on any third-party website to make a purchase. The native platform that provides even more seamless buying experience for you. I mean, we in 2020 itself, we saw the TikTok and Shopify partnership. We saw the expansion of Snapchat into stores for its brands and Facebook shops. So absolutely, social commerce is on the rise, and that is somewhere the decision makers will need to have a look at and see what kind of innovation we can do. And I think third one, in my view, would be augmented reality and virtual reality. Again, something not a new trend, but it's no more going to be a nice to have. As more and more people are going to prefer to shop from the comfort of their home, they want to bring that entire shopping experience brought it to life. So it can be, and I can see going towards 2021, in-store navigation, the virtual changing room, the changing mirrors, the magic mirrors, they say, and having to place the furniture from your living room. These are going to be a new norm. They are no more going to be a nice to have propositions for retailers. So I think there are fair few challenges for retailer going towards 2021. But I do also think that because there are significant opportunities, it does represent an inflection point for retail innovation.
Yeah. Thanks for those comments, Shrabani. I'm sure Steve is itching to give some insight from his perspective on that, which we'll come on to on the next set of questions. So thanks very much for that insight. David, taking the same sort of approach in terms of looking ahead to 2021, you'll be different given the consulting background, but what are your thoughts around those key challenges and how ERP innovation can help businesses move forward instead of just moving back or surviving?
Yeah, so I get stuck in front of CXOs on a regular basis and have to discuss their challenges and relate it to what I do and how we could give them an answer. This isn't exact, but the things they always ask me about is how we support new business models, which they already know about what they want. So they either want to move to a service-based operation, leasing and renting, or a batch of one, or greater personalization, or whatever it is, or moving from having wholesalers just to direct retail, B2B to B2C, and they want to do that. So you need to come up with something that's going to support those. They also talk an awful lot about how complex they've become in terms of trading and planning and things like that, and simplification of their model. And this is the large companies, the multinationals. They're spending an awful lot of their business sorting out that, and that needs sorting out. Linking the development of products, the creation of products, the management of products into how you plan, sell, and support those products is very important. So the link between things like PLM and your CPQ system and your ERP and then your service system seems to be a big topic. And then planning, forecasting, reduced lead times, all this complexity that you're bringing in with services and batches of one and personalization. How do you plan for that? How do you make sure you've got everything at the right time and keep your promises? All of that has to be done in a very efficient way at the lowest possible cost and the most effective way. And you have to have a very agile IT team to support that, which is closely linked to your business. So DevOps and that cloud and or microservices. And then the other overarching thing I see is, if I look at what has driven a lot of the projects we've won this year, moving towards a more renewable future and a green issues do that, whether it be battery production or overnight power storage or electric cars or whatever, or tariffs or anything like that, energy trading. That's another big theme. So in terms of the big themes that we see, those would be the ones I sum up as. In terms of what does that mean to me, I have to convince people that SAP and ERP and SAP S/4HANA is a good answer to all those problems and that we have a way forward. What it can't be is something that takes 7 years to deliver. So that has to be quick wins, it has to be agility, it has to be speed, and giving them a story that they can buy into and believe and then move forward, and the confidence to do that. I think any of the items I've talked about will provide a business case. It's just do they believe it, and do they believe that my SAP S4 platform is the right thing to do that on? And so that's my battle. 2021, I want to do more of that.
Thank you, David. I think we've definitely seen the market change in terms of clients don't want to pay 6 years of implementation. I think that agile approach and getting to see innovation in real or closer to real time, so 6 months, a year. And I think the conversations we've talked about have been very much around that. So thanks for your insight on that. Matt, do you want to, you've got quite a, with the Google Cloud, we're seeing a lot of more companies thinking about Google Cloud. Azure and AWS have obviously dominated that space. Do you want to give us your insight, Matt, from your perspective around what conversations you're having?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking about kind of, you know, these big ERP implementations that are extremely complex, you know, and have grown over a number of years, where the systems really haven't been changed too much, but they have kind of had more and more integration. So they've got really complicated, and we're talking about kind of simplifying some of that. So doing the analysis of the data center to see where the different kind of things are, and as we talk about cloud migration, identifying what we call the move groups of applications that we can move and do some transformation on. But it's really important that we don't kind of fall back into the trap of taking a complex organization, simplifying it down, and then making it more complex again once we get to the cloud, because we do need to be flexible in terms of, you know, the payment gateways, for example. So how do we do that? And I think the real answer is that, you know, we need to be really careful, and we need to educate customers not to kind of continue running their organization the way they did on premise. So don't just see the cloud as a data center migration. It's not a race to the bottom on cloud costs and all of those things. It's about how do you actually transform your organization once you've got to the cloud. So how do you know, you need to use the right platform, which is one of the reasons why we chose Google, that offers solutions as services. So you're not just rebuilding a complex data center in a cloud. You are using a service, and it takes that kind of pain away. So whether it's a managed database for some of your non-SAP applications or whatever it is, you need to be able to kind of transform the way you think about running an organization to act like that. So it is microservices, it is DevOps, it is continuous integration. And exactly as David said, you know, we need to be able to kind of, how do I put it? We need to be able to transform the way we work so that it is, sorry, lost my flow.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think with the cloud as well, we've seen a lot of companies look at their processes before that move. So instead of, like you said, just thinking, right, that solves all our issues, we've moved to the cloud, it's that pre-move, that preparation business processes that are being looked at.
Exactly, that's right. That's where I was going. So it's, where I was going was the kind of conversation with S4 migration. So, you know, do you just lift and shift? Do you migrate to S4? And where I was going was exactly, we can't do a 7-year implementation because your competitors aren't doing a 7-year implementation. We need to do a very quick implementation. And how do we make sure that is quick? And we make sure that is quick by not trying to re-implement exactly what we've got. So there has to be business change. You have to change your business processes, and you have to know, and some customers don't, what are my actual business processes? Where are my problems? Yeah. Am I doing like 75% of my orders manually because there's one guy that knows how to do something? You need to identify all that stuff, because all of that has got to change.
Yeah. Thanks for that insight, Matt. And that actually comes on nicely to Alistair with a few of the points made there. Alistair, do you want to go over your thoughts on this point, mate?
Yeah, that was fascinating, Matthew. I'm coming at it from a different perspective, because you probably all know my views about sort of like transformation is all around the operating model, not about the technology. Talking about cloud just confuses people, because for me it's not about cloud, it's not about digital. We should be talking platform, because platform really is about the operating model. I think the issue we went into with 2020 was the fact that Industry 3.0 has come to an end. Yeah, organisations are heavily optimised, both in terms of process and people. That's why solutions are simplified. That's why they're bespoke, is because they've gone through 30 years worth of Kaizen. So a heavily rich ERP system reflects the change of the organisation. So I'm sort of like, I'm a bit of a twiglet, because I actually don't believe that a complex ERP system is a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. It's just that many CIOs have lost the ability to support it because of their own weaknesses in the tech space, not because of the problem in the organisation, because there would have been a benefit case at some time to make the change. I think the biggest thing going on at the moment is oversight. Okay. We've heard from David in terms of FP&A. So for me, it goes back to real basics. We can be agile. We can do lots of small bits of continuous improvement, but it's got to be about EBITDA. Okay, it's got to be about liquidity. If there's no valid reason which doesn't drive EBITDA or liquidity, and you can't prove it immediately, we shouldn't be doing it. It's as simple as that. You can have lots of changes to your operating model, and you could be very, very agile in delivering in those changes to your operating model, but they should be nudges. They should be small change, which is reflective of the new norm, but you've got to get in and out quickly. But you've got to have that material benefit, that liquidity EBITDA. You can't be an enabling benefit case anymore. Moving to S4 is an enabling benefit case. It doesn't actually drive anything of real value. All the good stuff is in the platform, is in terms of SAP Cloud platform and all the cognitive services. So for me, oversight's important. We went into 2020 with lots of organisations not being able to actually see on a daily basis their liquidity. CFOs not being able to drive down and looking at low-level profitability of whatever it is they're manufacturing. If you cannot understand and run and control your organisation on a day-to-day basis, you cannot make the decisions to become agile and reactive to the new norm. So the concept of lots of change to try to drive us forward doesn't really pan out, because you could spend a lot of time trying to simplify, but it's almost, Alice in Wonderland in terms of the rabbit going down rabbit holes. What is the simplification you're really trying to find? And by the time you found it, your whole industry sector's moved on again. So you've got to think in terms of process health. You've got to think about the change which adds real immediate value, because we can drop whatever innovation we like now around the ECC digital core. You could keep ECC going until 2035. No one's really going to care. And it doesn't matter if the core processes are simplified, because there's loads of things we can do around the outside now to actually innovate and drive the real change we need. So I love the concept of omni-channel. We've seen that recently in terms of what SAP have brought to the market in terms of retail. We've got AATP. You've got loads of things going on which innovate, but they don't need to be done in one big bang, Peter transformation.
Yeah.
Small, agile, EBITDA, liquidity. If there's no benefit case and it doesn't drop out immediately, just don't do it.
Okay. Thanks for that insight, Alistair. And then finally, Steve, coming on to you, your thoughts on 2021 challenges ahead and the way that ERP innovation can overcome those challenges that you think people are going to face, business is going to face.
Yeah. I sort of agree and disagree in equal measure with stuff that's been said, really. I think, just to be controversial as much as anything.
We're going to come up with, that's the next part.
I think the fundamental is a lot of the messages and a lot of the things that's going to give benefits are stuff that we've been talking about for years and years and years since I had dark hair. It's like
quite a while ago.
Yeah, that long ago. Yeah, we've been talking about the availability of data from multiple sources and not in silos, and being able to use it, being able to do it. We've been talking about single views of customer since God knows how long, and all of that. And it's building the processes around the availability of some of the data that we've got there. So the stuff that Matt says, the availability through, say, the Google platform, there's loads there, and we can bring in market intelligence together with the operational data. The business models that Dave talks about, they're all the new things that need to be available and used, where sustainability and, trading and business with a conscience is now no longer a tick in the box of the annual report and the CSR bit. It's actually now having to be real. And we're seeing that in retail with rental opportunities. We're seeing it with reselling of things like Depop becoming huge with Down with the Kids and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, eBay now seems old hat, but, you know, that was the early days of reselling stuff. And we're going to see all of that stuff go. But what we're going to see behind it is the whole data trail of the circular economy and all that stuff, so we can tell where things has originated, where they've been, what they've done. And I think that's where we're moving. I think it's just being able to do more with the data that we've got rather than have it, you know, it's visibility, it's control of the processes. And I think everybody said pretty much the same thing, really, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked before when we've spoken, Steve, and I guess Shrabani, this will be for you as well, in terms of that that change around the customer experience and making sure that retailers are really following that simple process. It's efficient. Amazon have nailed it, right? That's why they've grown in the way that they grew. Do you think that average customer is still expecting that same experience? Is that why AR, augmented reality, is coming into retailing now more so, because you can't maybe go into the shops like we used to, or it's certainly changing? It's, you know, 1 minute we're in lockdown, then we're not. So how is that being addressed? How is that challenge being addressed by these retail businesses? Open to Steve or Shrabani on that one.
Well, I'll just quickly dive in at that one. If we look at, I had a great guy on the webinar that I do every week last week from Bring, and he was talking about how all about the last mile and the final mile of delivery, and that's where expectations are now being made in the retail world. It's all about getting it delivered to you and that contract being fulfilled, because it's expectations.
Yeah.
And you don't go, well, with the exception of Alistair, you don't go mad at Hermes for stuff not delivering. You tend to go mad at the actual retailer that has promised you to deliver those goods. And I think the term that Tom used last week was a great one. It's got to be the convenience and ease of Amazon with the trackability and traceability of an Uber in getting goods to you. And I thought it was quite a good sort of analogy.
Yeah, I think people's expectations, we almost want it like now. We expect that same service. I know, Alistair, you had a slight issue with Hermes recently, so we won't talk about Hermes, but opening the floor to everyone. Obviously, thank you for all of your points. We've taken a little look back at 2020. We've all agreed on many of those key points and challenges. 2021 ahead. There's some good views there on cloud. I know that there'll be some opposing views. So what's everyone's thoughts on what's been said? I know Alistair and David share some almost polar opposite views in some respects, but opening the floor to people to openly discuss.
I mean, I can go. I mean, I haven't been, I don't have an ERP background, but just from what I know, from what I've seen, what retailers have been up to, and looking ahead as well, I think most retailers are going to end up on a lean, simplified digital core with all the differentiation on the innovation we are talking about that's delivered by a suite of intelligent apps. I think that is where the world is going, and that does mean there is an acceleration that need to happen of the cloud landscape. So you have the cloud migration has to happen, otherwise you can't achieve this thing quickly. And what also it means that your integration between the applications and cybersecurity, these two things will be paramount in creating that seamless, safe, secure cloud architecture. So I think from my perspective, in order to drive all this continuity and the growth we are talking about, the cloud move is paramount. It's not a new trend again, but I think since it came along, it's been a game changer. I did a massive cloud migration at Marks and Spencer, and for having the ability to spin up a new environment within 5 minutes, that's powerful. So you are able to provision large amounts of infrastructure, and the fluctuating demands I was talking about. So you're able to, the ability to fluctuate and scale up and down. That's again going to be essential as we move into a very unpredictable era in terms of retailing. So I think that's my viewpoint. And also we talked about ERP solutions being time consuming, being complex, takes long to, cost too much. I think with the cloud computing, with the advancement of modularization, I think it's again immensely powerful. It's not just a prerogative of large companies. Small and medium businesses are going to take advantage of that. And I think more and more it's going to be popular amongst all the innovators and developers as well.
Thank you, Shrabani. Anyone else?
I'll go first quickly because I won't be disagreeing with anybody. I think we all seem to say that it's going to be a swift, fast, standard digital core and things that surround it, and that is going to be either apps or it's going to be extensions of SAP or cloud extensions or whatever that's going to be. I guess I'm appealing to the people who are watching this that as is ERP, Gorilla ERP, and the guys who are watching this and thinking about this, I think the attitude that your bosses have to your ERP solution is mainly down to you and the way that you behave and the way that you constrain your business. And if you start to open up these ideas, then you're going to be starting to deliver. You're going to be at the core of some exciting changes, and you're going to be driving them rather than just being on the receiving end of people telling you this is what you got to do. So I think the problem we see more with what's going to happen next in ERP is far more to do with the people who are running it currently opening up their minds to embracing the business and change than it is down to the business. And I appeal to you all to start thinking in new ways rather than going with the traditional stuff in the traditional skills and the traditional way you've done things for 25 years. Think about what the future brings, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
So building what David said, okay, I think it's absolutely clear plug and play around a platform is the way to go. It's absolutely, there's no doubt about it, because it just gives you the ability to not be reactive, to actually drive innovation. But as David said, there's got to be a mindset change, and the mindset change goes back to some absolute fundamentals. And the fundamental is that technology is no longer OPEX run. Technology is a full cost of sale of the product you're delivering. So it's, you have to think in terms of, if I am going to spin up something quickly because it's going to add value to my business model, it might only last for 12 months. Organizations have got to start thinking in terms of technology is an embedded part of the product. It's got to be seen as a cost of sale. It's got to be part of that controlling distribution. It's no longer go and see the techie guys, they'll do something, I mean, we want everything, but we're not prepared to pay for it. Yeah. And that's got to change.
Matt, that's quite a nice time for you to come in and give your thoughts, because I know we've spoken about that whole race into the bottom of the pond. It's all about cost. So what's your thoughts on that, Matt, and what's been said?
Actually, isn't it amazing now that we can actually employees can kind of have these ideas and be able to implement them for very little cost or known cost, which is a change, because I think, knowing, okay, I've got an idea, I want to implement a new piece of integration, and I know exactly how much it's going to cost, and I can run it for a month, and we can exactly see how much difference that will make, compared with before, where kind of they might borrow some hardware that's in the data center. There's no cost that comes into that piece of change. And so really, not knowing how much you're spending on the technology is definitely a thing of the past. Going forward, I think being able to associate that cost with a piece of innovation is great. And, and carrying that on as well, that the monetization of a company's own data is huge. So being able to put the data that you've already had for 20 plus years into a BigQuery data warehouse and being able to kind of monetize that and know where you can use that as value going forward is just amazing. I think all these things are really exciting.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. And Steve, your thoughts again as a summary on what's been said. Obviously, Shrabani came from a non-ERP perspective, and one of the reasons I wanted Shrabani to be part of this talk is obviously like David said, it's guerrilla ERP. We're talking very much around ERP innovation, but retailers especially, we've seen that real change, that recognition that what they've been doing for 25 years wasn't maybe pandemic safe, because they had to change their model of moving to more e-commerce. And I think Shrabani's been able to give some of that insight. But focusing on the ERP side, Steve, what are your thoughts in terms of what's been said here today?
Yeah, this is a major moment because I'm actually going to agree with David.
Oh.
It's the first time for a lot of things. But I think it's right what he says. There's so much is about mindset, because very few of these businesses that we're talking to have got nothing there. So they've all got something there that they've got to move with, adapt, change, whatever. And I think it's combining what David says about there's a mindset, there's a requirement of this whole mindset change to look at the art of the possible. And actually something that I'm pretty passionate about is continue learning about what's out there. Don't let your knowledge stop at the point in time you got into this game. Your knowledge has got to keep going. Every day is a school day. So there's lots of things to learn. There's lots more material. There's lots more of opportunities. And I think that's how these departments and the leaders of these departments get the chance to develop. And it picks on Shrabani's point as well about looking after the employees and looking after the staff within the departments. Give them a chance to grow. Give them a chance to actually develop their skills, move to the new world. And then they can come up with the ideas. The easiest way to get ideas adopted by a lot of businesses internally, and just from my experience of sat at a boardroom table, is if that idea comes from within, you might not be totally able to execute that idea, but certainly if there's some passion comes with it from the existing teams, or there's passion comes with it from some of the other users, adapting and building on what you've got, but just keeping the mind open to the art of the possible. And it can help it get through, then it can help it get adopted. Because, we talk about all these great things, but it's one thing to put them in place and another thing to get them adopted and actually used. Yeah. We've seen lots of shiny things sat on the shelves.
Just in summary, Steve, maybe 2021 is going to see us see those companies innovate and change, because it's been such an unusual 2020. Are they going to take that mentality into 21 and actually go in for a more, not risque approach, but more of a kind of using the internal business knowledge to make those? Because before it's been very external in terms of what do we do, and that's gone out external for an opinion.
But it's also about cycling the people as well, and cycling new blood and getting new ideas coming through. Is a standing joke that I used to say about a lot of companies I used to work with, was if they were outside London, at times it would be the same people that would be working there that have been there since Adam was a lad, and that have been there for 20, 25 years, which in many ways is a good thing in some places because it indicates loyalty. But in another case, it gets stagnancy as well. And that's the bit. So the cycling of new people coming through, when you get somebody like Shrabani that says, I've worked at Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's, Arcadia Group, there's some great experiences coming through there that can be put into many different businesses. And it's that sort, it's the knowledge that consultants bring, it's the knowledge that people that work with David brings, the likes of Alistair brings, all these people and Matthew's company that have been at different places, working with the people in the business to get that new ideas and the new thoughts to help things pass up to the board. Because otherwise, people will naturally try and keep doing what they've always done and expect different results.
Yeah.
It's the definition of insanity.
Just about to say. Before we move on to summing up on the last question, has anyone else got anything to add briefly?
Yeah, I was just going to say, sort of like, I agree with Steve, because if you're old enough, like myself, David and Steve, where we were there at the beginning of Industry 3.0, Industry 3.0 started with a platform called SAP. It gave us the first email. So we started with platforms, and we started all about Kaizen. Lots of inspired continuous improvement from the workforce, and it got us to where we are now. But I think it's a generational thing, and I think, as sort of like Steve said, it's about sharing with the next generation the things which went well with Industry 3.0, so they've got that catalyst to actually spin off really rapidly into Industry 4.0, because that's where we are now. Nothing's changed, it's all the same. It's just different faces.
Thanks, Alistair. So going back to Shrabani, twist or stick? What are you telling people for 2021? Stick with what they've got, try and sort of get through 2021, kind of liquidity that Alistair talked about, or twist, innovate, look at new ideas and try and take the business forward, head on to those challenges. Shrabani, if you had to advise one thing, twist or stick?
I think, Dane, moving ahead, the post-pandemic economy, as I see, the retailers will face a very stark choice. If you want to keep up and survive in this market, you will have to innovate and innovate fast. So to answer your question of stick or twist, it has to be twist for innovation for me. I mean, just even looking at yes, all the retailers are trying to optimize their e-commerce proposition. They're also looking at how can I maximize the utility of my brick and mortar space as well. Go to a Sainsbury's, you will see a Timpson's, you will see a Lloyd's Pharmacy, you will find an Explore Learning. So yeah, I mean, for all of this to happen, you will have to again have a technology as an enabler, and you'll have to invest in those technological innovations where you are able to spin up to new markets propositions very quickly. So yeah, I think for me, it's absolutely twist, especially in the era of Amazon as well.
Moving on, because I'm mindful of time. David, twist or stick?
Twist, but twist quickly. Don't twist slowly. And I kind of stick out my finger in an old doom-laden way and go, if you don't get on with doing things, you'll find you don't have a job in 5 years. So hurry up and get pushing on. Otherwise, a short-term expediency to get you home at 5 o'clock for the next couple of months is not going to keep you in a job for the next 5 years. So get on and do things quickly and be bolder.
Love it. Okay, so we're 2 for twist. Matt, same question. Twist or stick?
Has to be twist, because your competitors are twisting. So if you don't, you'll just get left behind.
Love it. And Steve, let's come to you now.
Yeah, as the same with everybody. You got to keep going. Let's twist again, as they say.
Twist again. We should have had the music playing at this point.
You wouldn't want us dancing.
Actually, I don't want to see you dance, actually, mate. And Alistair, last but not least, on the final question, twist or stick? Stick or twist?
You've got to twist it, and you've got to be bold. You've got to be bold. Simple as that. And it's all about data.
Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for your time and your insights. I think anyone that's watching this will have got a good picture as to people's experiences, what your opinions are for the challenges ahead, and hopefully some key takeaway points. We'll be sending out a PDF summary of everyone's points that should be with you by the end of the week for you to look at, and then it will be released next week with the video. So thanks everyone for your time and your energy. Have a great rest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
see you later, guys.